Growing up in an isolated valley meant learning to live with a specific kind of silence. The town was small, tucked away between hills. The people who lived there liked the isolation. They kept their lawns manicured and secrets buried. Everyone knew the law. It was not written in any charter, but it was taught to every child. The transition into adulthood brought the man. On my 16th birthday, my mother died. The sheriff told us she had slipped in a ravine behind our property, but the details were vague and the casket was kept closed. On that same day, my father sat me down at the kitchen table. "There is something you're going to see now," he said, his eyes refusing to meet mine. "He will stand in the background of your life. He might be at the edge of the woods when you walk home or stand near the mailbox while you do the dishes. Never look him in the eye and never speak to him. To acknowledge him is to break the order of this valley." "Who is he?" I whispered. "He is the one who follows," my father replied. "You are the only one who will see your specific follower. Everyone has one. We do not talk about them or even look at them. That is the only way we stay safe." The reality of his words hit me days later. Walking home from the bus stop, a sensation of cold air brushed against me. Turning my head, a tall figure in a dark, outdated coat was standing near the old oak tree. His face was obscured by the shadow of a wide-brimmed hat. His posture was rigid, his attention locked entirely on me. My father's warning echoed in my mind. I forced my gaze back to the road and kept walking. Living with him became a grinding torment. He was always there. When I did my homework, he stood in the twilight of the backyard. When I went to the grocery store, he stood at the outside entrance. Only I could see him. People would walk right through him, oblivious to his presence. My father did not handle the grief of my mother's death well. As the months passed, he fell deep into drinking, spending his nights in the basement or passed out. The smell of whiskey became a permanent fixture of our home. He stopped checking on me and only spoke to warn me whenever he noticed my eyes lingering too long. Senior year of high school, the tension in the town had reached a boiling point. One of my classmates, a quiet boy who sat in the back of class, vanished without a trace over a weekend. Rumors spread through the hallways. The elders of the town held an urgent assembly in the gymnasium. The principal stood at the podium, his voice stern. "We must remind you all of the rules of our community. The boy who went missing forgot his place. He broke the silence. Do not make his mistake. Keep your head down and focus on your studies." The boy had been a friend of my closest classmate, Kara. After school, we sat watching the sun dip. "We should go see them," I said. "Just to offer some comfort. It isn't right to leave them isolated like this." Kara hesitated, looking toward the dark woods bordering the school. "If the town council sees us there, we will be in trouble. We will go after dark." We made our way to the boy's house that evening, navigating the overgrown path. The house was dark, the only light coming from a single lamp in the living room. When we knocked, his mother opened the door slightly. "We just wanted to say we are sorry about him," my friend said quietly. The mother looked at us for a long time, her eyes darting to the shadows. Eventually, she let us in. "He stopped sleeping," the mother whispered, leading us into the living room. "He kept staring at the corner of his bedroom. He said the man was crying. He said the man wanted to tell him something. Did he leave any note?" I asked, keeping my voice low. "The council came and cleared his room. They burned his journals in the yard. But they missed his old biology textbook. It was still in his closet." While my friend talked to the mother, I quietly slipped down the hallway to the boy's bedroom. The room had been stripped bare, leaving only an empty mattress and a pile of papers. In the back of the closet, half hidden under a floorboard, I found the biology textbook. Tucked inside the back cover was a partially burnt page from a notebook. He wanted me to follow, the note read. He did not look angry. I think he wants to show me how to end this madness. If I do not come back, know that I went to find the source. I'm going to look him in the eye. I folded the paper into my pocket. I went back to the living room, grabbed my friend, and we left. As we walked through the dark, I pulled the paper out and showed it to her under the light of my phone. "I'm going to do it," I said. "Are you out of your mind? You saw what happened to him? We spend every single second of our lives in fear, pretending we don't see them. My father is drinking himself to death because of this town. My mother is dead because of this town. I want to know the truth. If you look at him, he will kill you," she said in panic. Promise me, I stayed silent, just looking through her eyes. Then I saw a small tear on her face. She ran back, leaving me alone. I walked back to my yard. My follower was waiting for me near the gate. His dark silhouette, perfectly still, my father was passed out inside, a bottle resting near his hand. Nobody was going to save me. Nobody was going to save this town. I took a deep breath, walked down the steps of the porch and towards the gate. I stopped 3 feet away from the tall figure. For the first time in my life, I raised my chin and looked directly into his face. Under the shadow of his hat, his skin was incredibly pale. His eyes were dark, sunken, and filled with a profound sadness. "I see you," I said clearly. The man's rigid posture snapped, his body elongated, twisting over the gate. His hands, pale and gray, clamped around my throat before I could even flinch. My knees buckled, but he held me upright, his grip lifting me slightly off the ground. His hat fell backward into the dirt. The face beneath was a nightmare. His mouth split open, unhinging like a snake's jaw. His eyes widened into deep, empty sockets. My vision began to darken at the edges. My lungs screamed for air. Yet, I did not close my eyes. I refused to look away. I stared directly into his face, holding his dead gaze with a desperate resolve. The creature froze. Slowly, the dark void in his eyes receded, replaced by sunken eyes of a human being. His grip on my throat softened, his fingers gently sliding down to my collarbone, then releasing me. I collapsed to my knees, gasping for air. Looking up, the terrifying specter was gone. The man stood there again, his hat back on his head, looking down at me. Slowly, a tragic smile appeared on his thin lips, and a single tear rolled down his pale cheek. He nodded once, a slow, deliberate movement, and turned toward the dark path leading into the forest behind my house. He took a few steps, then paused, looking back over his shoulder. It was clear he wanted me to follow. I followed him deep into the woods past the boundary lines. We walked for an hour in silence. Eventually, we reached a hidden clearing. In the center of the clearing were 2 simple, unmarked graves, mounds of soft dirt covered in damp moss. The man stopped at the edge and pointed his long, pale finger down at the earth, then looked at me, nodding again. He wanted me to touch them. I knelt in the grass and pressed my palms into the damp soil of the graves. The forest vanished, and my mind was pulled into a torrent of visions. I saw the same valley, but from a previous century. The houses were different, built of rough-cut timber and stone. The streets were filled with mud. People were dying in the dirt, clutching their chests and gasping desperately for air. A plague was sweeping through the settlement. Then I saw a young woman and her husband, both doctors, working tirelessly in a small wooden clinic. They boiled herbs, washed the sores of the sick, and tried to ease the pain of the dying. They did not ask for money. They only wanted to save the people. The fear of the plague turned the townspeople into monsters. I saw an angry mob gathering in the square. A local leader, his face twisted with hatred, pointed his finger toward the clinic. "They brought the sickness," he roared. "They are practicing dark medicine. They are witches and the cause of this plague." The mob stormed the clinic. They dragged the doctor woman out into the mud, binding her wrists with rope. Her husband managed to escape through a back window, fleeing into the dark forest. I watched through his eyes from his hiding place behind the trees. He cried silently, biting his own hand to stifle his screams as the mob tied his wife to a heavy wooden stake. They piled dry brush around her feet and lit the fire. Her screams echoed through the valley as the flames rose. The vision shifted. The husband was inside a dark cavern. He was entirely consumed by grief and madness. He used a knife on his hand, letting the blood drip onto the floor to draw a large circle. He held a strange, leather-bound book in his other hand, reading aloud from the pages. "If they will punish us for something we did not do, then I will at least die doing it to curse them. Every soul in this valley will bear our shadow," he whispered, his voice a mixture of sorrow and rage. As he finished the final words of the ritual, the sound of shouting echoed from the cave entrance. The mob had tracked him. They burst into the cavern with pitchforks and spades, driving a sharp tool directly through his chest before he could close the circle. He died with the curse unfinished, binding his spirit to the physical plane of the valley. He became the following man, a permanent haunting shadow forced to follow every descendant, keeping the memory of their crime alive through a cycle of silent torment. I snapped out of the vision with a violent gasp. I was on my back in the grass. The sky was still dark, and my father was kneeling beside me. His face was pale, his clothes smelling of alcohol and earth. "Get up," he whispered as he pulled me to my feet. "We have to go. Now. What are you doing here?" "How did you find me?" "Your friend got terrified and told her parents what you were planning to do, and they gathered the town council. They are coming to deal with you," my father said, dragging me toward his old station wagon parked on a logging trail. "I don't understand." I said, "Deal with me?" "Why? They killed your mother for the same thing?" my father said, his grip tightening. She looked at her follower. She wanted to help him. The council found out, dragged her into the woods, and buried her alive to cleanse the curse. I was a coward. I did not stop them and drank to drown the guilt, but I am not letting them take you. We reached the car, and he shoved me into the passenger seat, slamming the door shut. He started the engine and threw the car into gear, just as a dozen bright flashlight beams pierced through the trees behind us. They deserve to die. This entire valley is built on a murder. The people here have spent a century killing their own children just to keep a secret they don't even understand. My father said, "I made a deal with my follower years ago," my father said, keeping his eyes locked on the dark road. "I figured out how to finish the doctor's ritual. The curse was meant to release the actual plague they spent a century fearing, but it was left incomplete when he died. I spent years researching it in the basement, but I just couldn't do it. I always thought that maybe you could live, maybe no one has to die, but now I have to do it to save you." He slammed on the brakes at a dark junction near the state highway boundary. He reached across the console and pushed my passenger door open. "Get out and run to the highway," he commanded. "Call my phone. Keep the line open. Run as fast as you can." "No," I screamed, grabbing his arm. "You have to come with me. We can escape together. They will track this car," my father said, his voice softer now. He reached out and gently touched my face. "I have to go back to the house. The circle is already prepared in the basement. I have to finish the ritual to end this town once and for all. If I don't, they will hunt you to the ends of the earth. Run!" He pushed me out of the car. I hit the gravel as he drove the car back up the mountain toward our house. I scrambled to my feet, clutching my phone, and began sprinting down the dark highway. After some time of running, I just stopped. I couldn't run more without him. I dialed the number of my father, then pressed the speaker button, holding the screen close. "I'm in the basement." My father's voice came through, sounding calm and clear over the speaker. "The circle is active." Over the phone, the sound of our front door splintering open echoed loudly. Shouting filled the background. "He is in the basement," a voice roared through the phone. My father began to chant. It was the same low, guttural language I had heard the doctor speaking in my vision. "Stop him!" another voice screamed. A loud gunshot shattered the connection. But he did not stop. He kept chanting, his voice growing weaker but more determined with every syllable. I sobbed into the phone. Over the line, the shouting of the townspeople suddenly changed. The anger in their voices turned to confusion, then to terror. I heard them coughing a wet, suffocating sound like the people in my vision. They began to gasp for air, their lungs filling with the plague that had been locked away for over a century. One by one, the choking sounds faded into silence. The final sound I heard was my father taking one last peaceful breath. That was 5 years ago. I never went back. The state police found the entire town dead of a highly concentrated outbreak of a rare pulmonary infection. The area was permanently quarantined. I live in a large city now, hundreds of miles away. I have a decent job, a quiet apartment, and I'm in a relationship with a kind man who knows nothing about my past. 3 days ago, the cold air returned. I was sitting in my living room, watching my boyfriend cook dinner in the kitchen. I looked toward the dark hallway leading to our bedroom. Standing near the coat rack, perfectly still in the shadows, was a new follower. He is pale, with a dark, wet stain spreading across the chest of his faded flannel shirt. His bloodshot eyes are locked entirely on me, filled with a deep, silent sorrow. It is my father, and I do not know what to do.